Before we start learning about how we can test the security of networks, I would like to talk to you about the setup that we're gonna need to use in order to do this. So we're gonna need to use a number of tools and programs that run on Linux systems. You can install these tools manually if you want on any Linux operating system, or you can install a Linux distribution called Kali. Kali Linux is a distribution that it's based on Debian, and it contains most of the tools that we're going to need to use. It also has all these tools pre-installed and correctly configured and ready to be used. You can install Kali Linux as a main machine, so you can dial boot it with Windows or Linux or Mac OS or whatever you have as a main machine, and you select between the operating systems at boot, or you can install it as a virtual machine. I'm going to be installing it as a virtual machine, and I'm going to be using it as a virtual machine. I'd like to note that installing Kali Linux as a virtual machine doesn't make it any less useful than a main machine. You'll have all the tools, all the functionality of a main machine. The only downside to it is that you will not be able to access your internal wireless card. You're going to need to use an external USB card. Now, this is not a big deal because external cards are cheap, and they're also the internal cards are not very well supported, and they're usually not good for penetration testing. They don't allow for packet injection, and some of them don't even allow for monitor mode. Now, I haven't explained what monitor mode and packet injection is, but I will explain them once we get to them. So you can install it as a virtual machine. Basically, installing it as a virtual machine means you will install it, you'll be using it inside your current operating system. So if you're using Windows, or if you're using Mac, or if you're using Linux, you can use a virtualization program like VMware or VirtualBox, and you'll basically have a fully functional operating system inside your main operating system. We'll see how that works. It's very simple. It's not as complicated as it sounds. So there's two programs that allow us to install Kali Linux as a virtual machine. There you have VirtualBox and you have VMware. Personally, I prefer VMware, but they both work well and they both give you the same functionality. If you choose to go with VMware, then you don't actually need to install anything. You can just download a pre-installed version of Kali Linux using this link. I'll also put it in the resources on Udemy. So basically, you'll just download that file, install VMware, install that download that file, and double-click the file, and that's it. You have Kali Linux installed and ready to use. The only difference is these files, the pre-installed versions, usually come out after the release, after a week or maybe days, depending on when they want to make them and release them. Or the other option is you just download the ISO image. So ISO is basically just a bootable image. You can burn it on a CD, or you can just put it on a USB stick and boot from it, or you can just keep it on your hard drive and boot from it. And once we boot from it, we're gonna just do a normal install on Kali Linux. We'll go through the steps and see how we can install it. Now, this process of installing from the ISO image, you can use it with VirtualBox, you can use it with VMware, or when you want to install it as a main machine. The only difference is that when you're doing it as a main machine, you want to be careful not to overwrite your other operating system. If you're, say, for example, if you have Windows and you want to dial boot with Windows, then you want to make sure you don't overwrite Windows when you install Kali. But what I'm going to be using, what I recommend, is installing it as a virtual machine. So installing it inside Windows or inside Linux. For me, I'm going to be installing it inside Linux, but it's the same. So all you need to do is download VMware or VirtualBox. You download them from their official websites. VMware Player, you can download it for free, as far as I know. So you download it, you install it. VirtualBox is free as well. The installation process of VMware and VirtualBox is very simple, so I'm not going to explain it. Both on Linux and Windows, you literally just download your version and then just go next, install it, and that's it, installed. Then we're going to download Kali Linux. So to download Kali Linux, you just go to their website, kali.org, downloads. I'll show you here. and you download your flavor. So if you're looking for 64 bits, if your system is 64 or 32, you download the one that you want. Make sure it's the ISO. You can download it as a torrent or as the ISO. You click it, it'll start downloading. I already have it downloaded. So once you actually have it downloaded, we're gonna see how we can install it using using VMware. It's the same process using VirtualBox, just a different program, and it's the same process as I said if you're installing it as a main machine. Just make sure you don't overwrite your own operating system when you do it as a main machine. Using VirtualBox or VMware, you will not be able to overwrite your main operating system, so it's risk-free. Even if you mess up anything, if you do anything incorrectly, it will not have any effect on your main machine, because basically VirtualBox or VMware, they literally create a virtual computer, so a virtual RAM, virtual CPU, virtual everything, in order to allow you to run this virtual machine.